Hi there, I'm Dave, and in this video I'm going to talk about messy first drafts. And this is with creative projects. As hobbies, I write stories and I draw, but this advice could go toward painting or writing music, making sculpture, etc., etc., etc. So creative projects. And it's for the advice for here, and this is also a reminder for me of being okay with that first draft or the first several drafts being messy and not being as precious about it. Now, for me, I get frustrated because when I'm writing or drawing and what is coming out on the page is not matching up to my image of it, my hope of how it would turn out. It's frustrating and challenging, but I'm getting better as I work on it. I've been doing it for a while. I've been getting better about being okay with that and being okay with those first drafts being messy. Because to me, those drafts are explorations, they're experimenting. And while you're doing that, you can be unfocused. You could have an idea starting off, but not know all the details. And as you're working your way through it and being unfocused, there's going to be messes along the way. And being okay with that, to me, is a really good thing for working through projects. Now, I've got a couple of quotations that have been really helpful for me as I think about this topic. They're both by writers, but again, this advice could pertain to whatever creative project you're doing. The first one is by Ernest Hemingway, and I've seen it around. You may have too. And the quote goes, let me see if I can fit it all in. Yep. I rewrote the first part of A Farewell to Arms at least 50 times. The first draft of anything is beep. So, I didn't know that before I saw this quote, that he had written the first part of A Farewell to Arms, what do you say, at least 50 times, which to me is not super surprising. I get the impression of Hemingway being a strict editor as far as, banging out the story on a manual typewriter and afterwards just filling up the page with ink, red ink, blue ink, whatever color you used, and just editing and paring down the text, getting to to the essential part of it. He started as a journalist, right? So it's getting that stuff just right the way he liked it. But that's the first part, and the second part of the first draft of anything, it's going to start somewhere. And I feel clumsy doing this, but this is a first draft for me as far as working on the video. So I'm not going to edit it. I'm going to leave it as it is. The second part is a 2-pager. Make sure I got second quote is from Anne Lamott, and it's a longer one, so it takes 2 pages. I'm going to make sure I've got the first page. We start with the first one. So this one is, almost all good writing begins with terrible first efforts. You need to start somewhere. Start by getting something, anything, down on paper. And that continues. What I've learned to do when I sit down to work on a first draft is to quiet the voices in my head. And again, that's Anne Lamott, who wrote a really good book called Bird by Bird, about the writing craft. And it's that last part, quiet the voices in my head, that I want to kind of talk about next, because for me, in working with that first draft, I try to get that inner editor and inner critic to calm those voices. They're with me in the whole journey, just part of me. And I try to, because I think I have a better time working on those first drafts when those guys are quieter on the side. Now, the inner editor, he's mentioning when, like there's grammar or punctuation, something doesn't make sense. He's telling me those mistakes along the way. And when it's editing time with a story or poem or what have you, that's fine. That's where I want him to talk. But during those first drafts, when I'm just trying to get out the story, get out the drawing, and just explore and go forth and try and try and try. I want him to calm down. Same thing with the inner critic. You know, the critic is different from the editor to me in that the critic is not as much with, say, proper punctuation or grammar, but is more, this is no good. You know, nobody's going to like this. This is just, who cares? This is not great stuff. That's, again, similar thing that it's going to be there along the way, that insecurity is going to pop up. But their first draft, calm it down, you know, because when those voices are calmer, I can better get into the flow state, you know, where it's fluid when I'm creating. The rest of the world around me I don't pay as much attention to it. I'm in the world of the story or the drawing, and it's a wonderful feeling to get into that. And, you know, it doesn't mean that it's effortless, but I'm still making messes along the way. It's just that I have a better time getting this stuff out when that happens. And when I do finish that first draft, at least I have something down, something that's on the paper or typically more on the screen, something that I can react to later. You know, I'll take a break from it, come back to it later, and that's when editing can come in. Of course, you know, I'm typing on the computer, I can revise then. I also draw. I draw on the computer so I can edit it then. I can start over too. You know, I can have that second attempt, third attempt, what have you. And it could be a little different than the first time. You know, it's shifting focus to something else, exploring something different, still making messes, but with those drafts, I could take pieces of the first draft, pieces of the second, the third, what have you, and see what worked better and take those pieces out and carry them along on the project. So that's really the topic I wanted to talk about today, as far as trying to be okay with messiness. Knowing that messiness is part of the process. I'm not going to use the words that these guys did. Might get flagged on YouTube. I don't know. Fairly new here. But just, you know, like I said, it's a reminder to myself, and hopefully a suggestion to you, to try not to be as precious about as you're starting to work on these things, that being okay with making some mess along the way. So I wish you good luck on your projects, and thanks for watching.